For generations, people were told that cash was safety, that money in the bank meant control, stability, and freedom. If you saved enough, you were protected. If you avoided risk, you were responsible. Cash wasn't just money, it was peace of mind. But what if that belief no longer holds? What if the very thing people rely on to feel secure is quietly losing its power? Not someday in the distant future, not in theory, but right now. And what if 2026 is the year that reality becomes impossible to ignore? This documentary is about why cash stops doing what people expect it to do, why holding money no longer guarantees safety, and why the rules that once rewarded patience and discipline are quietly changing beneath our feet. At its core, cash is simple. It's stored value. Money you don't invest, don't risk, don't move. It's meant to wait for you. That's why people save. For emergencies, for freedom, for the future. Cash represents optionality, the ability to decide later. But cash only works when its value holds, when what you can buy tomorrow is close to what you can buy today, when time doesn't quietly erode it. And that condition is weakening. This matters because most people still organize their lives around cash. Salaries are paid in cash. Bills are paid in cash. Savings sit in cash. Retirement plans assume cash will be there when needed. When cash loses power, the impact isn't abstract. It hits daily life. For decades, holding cash made sense. Inflation was low and predictable. Bank interest offset price increases. Money parked safely didn't feel like it was shrinking. You could wait. Time was on your side. That world shaped habits, advice, and values. Save first. Spend later. Avoid risk. Keep money liquid. These ideas weren't wrong. They were built for a different environment. But the system evolved. Governments learned to manage economies through money creation. Central banks became more active. Crises were met with stimulus. New money entered the system to prevent collapse. It worked in the short term. The side effect was subtle but powerful. As more money entered circulation, each unit became less scarce. Prices adjusted. Assets rose. Cash didn't disappear. It just lost purchasing power. Inflation is the technical word for this, but the concept is simple. When prices rise, money buys less. If your savings grow slower than prices, you're not standing still. You're moving backward. For years, this erosion was slow enough to ignore. A few percent here, a few percent there. But over time, it compounds. And by 2026, the cumulative effect becomes hard to deny. Cash doesn't fail loudly. It fails quietly. It sits where you left it, while the world around it moves on. The grocery bill climbs. Rent increases. Insurance costs rise. Healthcare gets more expensive. Cash stays the same number, but its reach shrinks. This is where the pressure shows up. People feel like they're doing the same things, but getting worse results. Saving more but feeling poorer. Being cautious but falling behind. That confusion isn't personal failure, it's structural change. Consider someone who spent years building an emergency fund. They skipped vacations, lived modestly, did everything right. On paper, their savings look healthy. In reality, those savings buy less security than they used to. Or consider retirees living on fixed cash-based income. Prices rise. Income doesn't. Every year requires more adjustment, more compromise, more anxiety. Cash was supposed to be certainty. Instead, it becomes a source of stress. Here's the part most people aren't told. Cash losing power isn't a mistake. It's a feature of the modern system. Inflation encourages spending. It discourages hoarding. It pushes money into motion. From the system's perspective, idle cash is inefficient. Money that sits doesn't stimulate growth. So policies quietly penalize holding it. Low interest rates, rising prices, limited yield on savings. The message is subtle but clear. Don't stand still. Who benefits from this? Borrowers benefit because inflation makes debt easier to repay. Asset owners benefit because prices of real estate, stocks, and businesses rise faster than cash. Institutions benefit because money flows through them. Who loses? People who rely on cash as protection, people without access to assets, people who followed old rules in a new game. This creates an invisible divide. Not between rich and poor, but between those whose money moves and those whose money waits. Cash becomes passive, assets become active, and the gap widens quietly. By 2026, this dynamic becomes more visible because multiple forces align. Inflation remains elevated. Interest on savings stays modest. Asset prices remain resilient, and everyday costs continue to climb. At the same time, risk feels higher. Markets feel uncertain. People hesitate to invest, so they do what feels safe. They hold cash. And that choice, ironically, becomes riskier over time. This is the hidden cost. Safety that slowly disappears, not through loss, but through decay. Like ice melting in plain sight. The real lie isn't that cash is useless. Cash still matters. You need liquidity. You need flexibility. You need a buffer. The lie is that cash alone is enough. The real rules are different now. Cash protects you in the short term. Assets protect you over time. Cash gives you options today. Assets preserve purchasing power tomorrow. This doesn't mean reckless investing. It doesn't mean chasing hype. It means understanding that standing still in a moving system has consequences. The system rewards participation. It rewards ownership. It rewards money that is exposed to growth. Cash opts out of that process, and opting out has a cost. So what can people actually do? First, redefine what cash is for. Cash is for emergencies, transitions, and flexibility, not long-term preservation. Treat it as a tool, not a destination. Second, understand inflation in your own life. Track how your personal costs change, not just headline numbers. Awareness alone changes decisions. Third, build exposure gradually. Simple, diversified assets. Nothing flashy, nothing fast. The goal isn't to beat the system. It's to avoid being quietly drained by it. And finally, adjust expectations. The old promise that patience alone guarantees security no longer applies the same way. Patience still matters. But so does positioning. 2026 isn't the year cash disappears. It's the year people stop pretending it's neutral. The year the slow erosion becomes visible enough to change behavior. Cash doesn't fail in a crash. It fails in silence. And once you see that, you stop asking why things feel harder and start understanding why the rules feel different. If this helped you see things more clearly, take a moment to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Rise and Ruin, Power of Wealth for more documentaries on money, power, and the forces shaping our future. Because money doesn't lose power overnight. It loses it when the system changes, and in 2026 that change is no longer